On 16th of April 2019, the world woke up to the news of devastation of the Notre-Dame Cathedral by a massive fire. The fire was declared under control almost 9 hours after it started, although its actual cause largely remains a disturbing mystery considering the fact that latest renovation work on the 850-year-old cathedral was underway. We will take a look at a few of the thrilling facts and secrets about this medieval building which you probably didn't know about. The Cathedral of Notre-Dame is situated on the island called Ile-de-la-Cité within the city of Paris, France. The church was begun in 1160 in the reign of King Louis VII of France. His close confidant, Maurice de Sully, Bishop of Paris, began work on a church which would showcase French Gothic architecture, and much of the construction was completed before his death in 1196. Although the French President Emmanuel Macron has vowed to rebuild the 12th century cathedral and hundreds of millions of euros have already been pledged, some of its ancient French Gothic architectural impressions may never be recovered. For instance, one of its most famous features, the South Rose window, was a gift to the Cathedral of 1260 from that most religious of Capetian kings Louis IX, later canonized and known to history as Saint Denis, donated the beautiful stained glass which has already been damaged and restored many times in its long history. There are fears that the workmanship in this window, along with the famous north and west roses, may have been badly damaged by the fire. Its main rival as a national symbol, the Eiffel Tower, is little more than a century old. Notre Dame has stood tall above Paris since the 1200s. The last time the cathedral suffered major damage was during the French Revolution, when statues of saints were hacked by anti-clerical hotheads. The building survived the 1871 Commune uprising, as well as 2 world wars, largely unscathed. Notre-Dame, which meaning Our Lady of Paris, often referred to simply as Notre Dame, was begun in 1160 under Bishop Maurice de Sully and was largely complete by 1260, though it was modified frequently in the following centuries. The cathedral has been one of the most widely recognized symbols of the city of Paris and the French nation through centuries. As the cathedral of the Archdiocese of Paris, Notre Dame contains the cathedra of the Archbishop of Paris, Michel or Petit. 12 million people visit Notre Dame annually, making it the most visited monument in Paris. In Latin, which was the language of the Middle Ages, the word for chair is a cathedral. So to describe any religious building that held the seat of the Archbishop, the honorable title of cathedral was used. Deciphering the Notre Dame part is more straightforward. It translates to Our Lady, aka the Virgin Mary, to whom the building is dedicated. It is believed that before the period of Christianity in France, a Gallo-Roman temple dedicated to Jupiter stood on the site of Notre Dame. Evidence for this is the Pillar of the Boatman, discovered in 1710. This building was replaced with an early Christian basilica. A baptistery, the Church of John the Baptist, the Roman temple built before 452, was located on the north side of the Church of Saint Etienne where Notre Dame is situated today. 4 churches succeeded the Roman temple before Notre Dame. The first was the 4th century Basilica of Saint Etienne, and the last church before the Cathedral of Notre Dame was a Romanesque. In 1160, the Bishop of Paris, Maurice de Sully, decided to build a new and much larger church. He summarily demolished the Romanesque cathedral and chose to recycle its materials. Sully decided that the new church should be built in the new Gothic style, as by then a number of large Gothic cathedrals had already been raised elsewhere in France. The Gothic architecture is believed to have been an invention of the Goths, a barbaric race that is said to have invaded the ancient Roman Empire. They are famous for sacking the city of Rome in AD 410. Ironically, however, they are often credited with helping preserve Roman culture. After the sacking of Rome, a group of Goths moved to Gaul, in modern-day France, and Iberia and formed the Visigothic kingdom. This kingdom would eventually incorporate Catholic Christianity, Roman artistic traditions and other aspects of Roman culture. In 1548, rioting Huguenots damaged some of the statues of Notre Dame, considering them idolatrous. In the 1790s, Notre Dame suffered desecration during the French Revolution. Much of its religious imagery was damaged or destroyed. Notably, in 1793, during the French Revolution, the cathedral was rededicated to the cult of reason, and then to the cult of the Supreme Being. During this time, many of the treasures of the cathedral were either destroyed or plundered. At least for a time, the Goddess of Liberty replaced the Virgin Mary on several altars, and the cathedral came to be used as a warehouse for the storage of food and other non-religious purposes. In July 1801, the new ruler, Napoleon Bonaparte, signed an agreement to restore the cathedral to the church. It was formally transferred on 18th of April 1802, and the latest damage inflicted by mystery fires on 15th of April 2019 occurred just 3 days to this anniversary. It was the setting of Napoleon's coronation as emperor on the 2nd of December 1804, and of his marriage to Marie-Louise of Austria in 1810. The celebrated architecture of Notre Dame has been witness to some of the most famous events in royal history. It was at the cathedral that Philip IV of France convened the First Estates General, while in 1431, the English boy king, Henry VI, was also crowned as French ruler, too. Mary, Queen of Scots, married her first husband at Notre Dame. Her wedding to François, Dauphin of France, took place in 1558. In 1804, the cathedral was the site of the coronation of Napoleon I as Emperor of France, and witnessed the baptism of Henri, Count of Chambord in 1821, and the funerals of several presidents of the Third French Republic. John of Gendon recognized the cathedral as one of Paris's 3 most important buildings, prominent structures, in his 1323 treatise on the praises of Paris. He referred to it as that most glorious church of the most glorious Virgin Mary, Mother of God, deservedly shines out, like the sun among stars. For centuries, Notre Dame was known as Liber Pauperum, or Poor People's Book, and its outside was littered with visual representations to bring to life religious instruction for those that couldn't read. That's why, the exterior of Notre Dame cathedrals, like most of other Gothic churches, was decorated with sculptures of a variety of fabulous but frightening grotesques or monsters. These included the gargoyle, the chimera, a mythical hybrid creature which usually had the body of a lion and the head of a goat, and the Strix or Strige, a creature resembling an owl or bat, which was said to eat human flesh. The Strix appeared in classical Roman literature. It was described by the Roman poet Ovid, who was widely read in the Middle Ages, as a large-headed bird with transfixed eyes, rapacious beak, and greyish-white wings. They were part of the visual message for the illiterate worshippers, symbols of the evil and danger that threatened those who did not follow the teachings of the Church. The spire of the cathedral, which collapsed under fire on April 15, was originally in place between the 13th and 18th centuries and recreated in the 19th century. But because of the recent ongoing renovation, the copper statues that were normally on the now collapsed spire had been removed from the building a week prior. The entire spire weighed 750 tons. The original spire was constructed in the 13th century, probably between 1220 and 1230, and the destroyed version was recreated by Eugene Viollet-le-Duc in the 19th century. Following Viollet-le-Duc's plans, the spire was surrounded by copper statues of the 12 apostles, in 4 groups of 3, one group at each point of the compass. Each of the 4 groups was preceded by an animal symbolizing one of the 4 evangelists. The iconic apostle's status, like the statue of Thomas the Apostle, with the features of restorer Viollet-le-Duc, standing at the base of the spire, are said to have been removed due to renovations that Notre Dame was undergoing. However, among the little-known facts of Notre Dame is the statue of Impostor Saint. By the mid-19th century, Notre Dame was in need of a major facelift, so to save it from ruin, architect Eugene Viollet-le-Duc was put at the helm of a massive renovation project that would last over 2 decades. While redesigning the church's spire, he secretly replaced one of its apostle statues with a slightly less biblical figure, himself. Talk about leaving your mark on the world. To get a glimpse of this party crasher, turn your gaze up toward the green figures standing at the base of the central spire. All of them look out across Paris except one who's turning in the opposite direction, hand to the forehead, that to admire his handiwork for centuries to come. Which apostle did architect Viollet-le-Duc choose to replace? St. Thomas the Carpenter, of course. Another little-known mystery is the story behind the famous artworks in Notre Dame. Tens of thousands pass through the cathedrals in trance each day without knowing they're walking through the echoes of a most devilish legend. Biscornet, the medieval metalsmith commissioned to decorate the doors of the church's main portals, produced ironwork so beautiful and technically proficient that his superstitious contemporaries could think of only one explanation: he must have sold his soul to the devil. Rumors swirled. A visitor to Biscornet's studio claimed he found the artist unconscious and fever-stricken on the floor, with the masterpiece having been mysteriously completed by supernatural forces. According to the Notre Dame priests who installed his artwork, Biscornet's locks refused to work until splashed with holy water. The artisan's untimely death soon after only reinforced the suspicion that Lucifer had come back to carry out the contract. And oddly enough, even today's metallurgy experts can't quite explain how he pulled it off with the limited tools of the time. One of the most iconic treasures kept at the treasury at Notre Dame is the tiny piece of the crown of thorns. This is said to be the crown of thorns which was believed to have been worn by Jesus Christ during his crucifixion and which was bought by King Louis IX in 1239. It's normally stored at the end of the nave of the cathedral, not readily visible to visitors. Artwork adorns a significant amount of walls inside the church, with paintings dating back to the 1600s. Two of the most important are St. Thomas Aquinas, Fountain of Wisdom, created by Antoine Nicolas in 1648, and the Visitation, created by Jean Jouvenet in 1716. Some of the statues whose fate is unknown are the gargoyles and chimera statues which have been looking over the cityscape of Paris from the top of the 11th century Notre-Dame Cathedral. The great organ, the largest organ in France, calls Notre Dame home. It contains pieces that date back to the Middle Ages. The original great organ dates back to the Middle Ages, though its most recent iteration was built in 1868. It has been modified throughout the years and was completely restored in 1992. The organ has 5 keyboards and around 8,000 pipes. Notre Dame houses 10 bells that weigh up to 4 tons each. The oldest bell, named Emmanuel, has been inside the cathedral since 1861 and is tolled for momentous historic occasions, such as the end of World War II. The sum of the bells are usually put on display in Notre-Dame Cathedral during a ceremony of blessing. The cathedral has always been a center of social change. In 1969, it displayed a North Vietnamese flag on its pinnacle in the aftermath of peace talks surrounding a possible ceasefire in Vietnam. Notre Dame has also served as a place of hope for scores of people. Soldiers also filled the cathedral's pews during the GI memorial service for U.S. President Roosevelt in 1945. It was the site of national service for victims in the aftermath of the Paris terror attack in 2015. Notre Dame Cathedral is usually illuminated during a light show called Dame de Coeur to celebrate the centenary of the First World War. French President Emmanuel Macron announced that Notre Dame will be rebuilt, stating it's part of the fate, the destiny of France, and our common project over the coming years. And I am committed to it. This documentary was brought to you by Unity Renaissance Africa, connecting people, changing Africa. If you like this video, feel free to subscribe, like, share or post your comment below for the good of enlightenment.